Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In the previous video, we added a webhook to our Telegram group, and now we are getting all the messages that are sent to that Telegram group in our web server. And in this video, we're going to pass that image URL to this optimization service. Now, what this optimization service will do is it will convert the image so that it is supported by the Instagram APIs. So the problem with Instagram API is that it only supports the images which have aspect ratio in this range. So its aspect ratio should be between 0.8 and 1.91. So aspect ratio is nothing but the ratio of width and the height of the image. So in this case, the width is 1920 pixels and 1080 pixels is the height. So its aspect ratio would be something like 1.77. So this is generally the aspect ratio of your display devices like your television, your monitors, and even your cell phones. So now Instagram supported maximum aspect ratio is this. Like in this case, the width is very much larger than the height. That is why this ratio is bigger than 1. And if the width is smaller than height, then the aspect ratio would be smaller than 1, like in this case. So let's say we have an image. So this image's aspect ratio is much more than the supported aspect ratio. So if I superimpose over this image, you can clearly see that we need to do something with this image so that it is supported by our Instagram API. Now what we are going to do is we are going to add black borders on top of the image and on the bottom of the image. So we are mathematically going to calculate how much black border we have to add on top of the image and on the bottom of the image so that its aspect ratio becomes what is supported by the Instagram API. And similarly for image 2, we are going to superimpose over the minimum possible aspect ratio image, and we are going to add black borders on the left side and on the right side. So if you see the math, it will be pretty clear to you. I mean, it might seem like a very complicated thing, or maybe it doesn't seem like a very complicated thing, but the math is really simple. Now for modifying these images, I'm going to use a package known as Jimp. It is a JavaScript package that we can use to manipulate images. So as you can see, it has several functions like reading and resizing the images, quality change, and grayscale, and it can even write to your disk. So I'm going to use this function. So let's directly dive into code. I'll first install this. So npm install Jimp. Okay, so I have that package added. Now I'll create a new service, which is going to be optimization service. And in this service, we are going to have several functions. So first function would be, or the first statement would be, okay, now that I have that imported, I need to create a new function. So the new function would be optimize image. It will take a URL and it will download the image. So for downloading the image, I think Jim provides us with a function. Yeah, here it is. So I'll simply copy it. I'll paste it here. Let's format this. And in this case, we need the URL. Then we got the image. We're going to do some stuff with the image. If there was an exception, I'm going to simply console log the error. Or what we can do is I can return a promise from here. So return new promise so that the caller will know whether the call has been succeeded or failed and when the call has succeeded. So it will be resolve, reject, and I'll move everything from here into this section. And yeah, and after console logging, I'm going to reject this with the error message. Perfect. Now I need to do some stuff with the image. So what do I want to do? I want to download the image which is already here, and now I want to check if the aspect ratio is in the limits. If not in the limits, add black borders. So this is one step, and then save the file locally. So these are the three things that I need to do. So let's see how we can check if the aspect ratio is in the limits. So I'll just define the maximum and minimum aspect ratio here. So maximum aspect ratio is 1.91 and the minimum aspect ratio is 0.8. Now I need to check what is the height and width of the image. So const height is equal to, let's see if there is a function which helps us with that. So height. Okay, so I found these two functions. So this would be image dot bitmap dot height, and the same would be for width. We got the height and width, and if the aspect ratio is greater than the maximum aspect ratio allowed, we are going to do something. If it is smaller than the minimum aspect ratio, we are going to do something. Okay, if the aspect ratio is greater than the maximum possible aspect ratio, we are in this case. So in this case, we need to find out what is the height that is supported. So let's say its width we don't want to change because the width is going to be constant for this image that we are getting, but we want to modify its height, right? So what is this height that we want to fix this image into? So let's see. This height is going to be the width, which is in this case W1, upon the maximum aspect ratio. Let me put it this way. So the formula for aspect ratio is width upon height, and if we take this height over to the left hand side and take this aspect ratio to the right hand side, we get this formula. So in order to calculate the height, we have this formula where W1 is the width and aspect ratio is the maximum aspect ratio. So let's try and calculate our new height for this image. So the new height for this image will be width divided by max AR. And similarly, in this case, aspect ratio is less than the minimum aspect ratio. So this is the case. And in this case, we want to calculate the new width of the image. So W new is equal to, again, we see that this is the formula. So in this case, minimum aspect ratio multiplied by, when we take the height to that side, right and left hand side, we are going to get multiplied by h. So this is the new width for this image. So let's take that into account here. New width is equal to height into minimum AR, and this will give us new height and new width for the image containers. Now we need to place those images so that they are centered automatically, and for that there is a function already. So let me search for that function. So this is the function that we want to use. So the documentation says scale the image to the given width and height, and some part of the image may be letterboxed. So letterbox is nothing but adding equal top and bottom black borders or left and right black borders, and this is exactly what we want, right? So all we have to do is we are going to use this function and pass on the new height and width. So in this case, image dot contain width. What is first? First is width. So this is going to be the width and then new height. Similarly here, it is going to be the height and the new width. Awesome. Okay, now we want to save the file locally. For writing the file, we can use this image.write function, and it takes a path and a callback. So let's copy it here, and path would be, and this callback function, it will give us an error, or it will give us some data. So if there was an error, I am simply going to reject that write failed. Otherwise, I'm going to resolve. Let's also log this data. Okay, now that we have this function ready, I think we can export this. And we are going to import this in our request handler service. Now let's move this part of the code from here to the if block. Now let's call the optimize image function. So optimize image and the image to be posted, which is actually the URL. So this should work. Let me start the server. So I've started my Node.js server, And one thing that you have to note is that every time you start your computer again or you restart this ngrok service, you are going to get a new URL. And every time you get a new URL, you are going to have to update your webhook endpoint for the Telegram bot. So this is just something you have to do because you do not have a constant domain name. If you want, you can host your Node.js application on a permanent domain, and then you don't have to do this procedure because your domain name will be constant and your application will be up and running all the time. So this is something that you should keep in mind. Let's try to post an image. Okay, I got an error. Jimp is not defined. I think I made a mistake somewhere. Yeah, instead of Jimp, it should be small j, but I'll change it here. Now that I've fixed the capital J, let me restart this and let's send one more time. I have to reply to a message, otherwise it won't work. Okay, perfect. So it has written the image. Let's see. Yeah, so it has written the image. Let's see if this works on an image which has a low aspect ratio. Perfect. So as you can see, it has added black borders equally on left and right hand side. This is exactly what we wanted. Now I'm going to assume that the other way, like if an image has an aspect ratio which is greater than the maximum possible value, it is going to work and it will add borders on top and bottom. I'm not going to test that. I'll assume that it is going to work. So we have created our optimization service. In the next video, we are going to create this Instagram service, which will take the optimized image and post it to Instagram. So that would be the last video of the series. I hope you guys enjoyed it so far. If you like this video, drop a like down below and also subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching and see you guys in the next one.